For the last 15 years, Adam Montiel has been bringing you the stories, the people, and the producers that make wine better and more fun. Here, we taste it, we spill it, we leave it all on the table. It's The Pour with Adam Montiel.
Madeline Puckette, the co-founder of Wine Folly. Got a chance to meet Madeline when I recorded an episode of Where Wine Takes You with her about a year ago. Knew I wanted to chat with her again, and this conversation, we go everywhere. We chat for a while. I can't wait to share this with you. I've been sitting on this for a little while, and I'm so excited to have this be our next episode of The Pour. Wine Folly serves as an educational platform, offering a variety of resources such as articles, videos, courses, infographics to demystify the world of wine for enthusiasts of all levels. 2 acclaimed books stemming from the website, Wine Folly Paperback and the latest Wine Folly Magnum Edition, the latter earning a prestigious James Beard Award. Recognized by the Washington Post as a pivotal resource in wine education, Madeline's expertise extends beyond the digital realm as she's embarked on book tours, collaborated with wine regions such as Paso Wine Country, with a commitment to making wine accessible and enjoyable for all. Madeline's contributions through Wine Folly have left an indelible mark on the world of wine appreciation and, more than that, understanding. I hope you enjoy part 1 of my conversation with Madeline Puckette of Wine Folly. Cheers, Madeline. Thanks for doing this.
Cheers, dude.
I am so excited that you're here. This is one of the first episodes of The Pour. And for someone who remembers what I did with the Cork Dorks, and of course I got the Where Wine Takes You. That was my first time meeting you, was the Where Wine Takes You podcast, what I did with Paso Wine. But I just loved our chat, and I thought, how much fun would it be to have Madeline on right in the beginning of the series? Originally planned on you being the first episode, and then there was a call to action to World of Pinot Noir, so we had that as the first episode. But we are in episode number 2, and it is so great to have you, Madeline.
Heck yeah, man. I'm super excited to be here. I mean, right?
You're in your story, there's a lot of ways that our stories are they're a little similar. And you, the last couple of weeks, I've asked a lot of different people, from the sheriff to this person, that person, have you ever gotten laid off? What is that like? And some people, I'm like, gosh, you had a charmed life. They're like, no, never got laid off. But you have been doing something, and that has been ripped out from underneath you. And you had a real decision of like, where am I going? What am I doing?
Oh my God. Yeah. And it's so fresh for you. So I don't want to make things more fresh, but I can remember.
I love that you say that, but honestly, like in the beginning, you'll relate to this. Everyone's like, oh, you'll be better. It's a blessing in disguise, silver lining, all this stuff. And in the fog in the beginning of that, you don't see that. And I was so blessed. It did not take long at all to see that. And I mean, with the Up and Adam podcast I'm doing now, with this, like we have advertisers, we have people interested. So things have been incredible of a blessing, but you don't always see this, right? When things just happen like that.
No, you certainly don't. I mean, I can remember walking in, I think it was January 2009, walking into the office, and around, I think it was 11 a.m., a lot of people were getting called into the manager's office. And then they were just leaving the office. They were just walking out of the building and leaving the office. But it was Reno Gazette Journal was a big building. So and it was very cavernous in there. So someone would leave the desk and you thought, oh, maybe they went for lunch, or maybe they're doing, cause it's a reporting station. Maybe they're out on a reporting station. What I didn't know is they just weren't coming back. So I go in for my 11 a.m. appointment with my manager, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what this is about. And she sits me down, and she is in tears, crying, just because she's had to lay off so many people that day. It's like a heavy job, and she's crying, and she's like, you're going to do better things. You're going to do great things. She said that just like that. Does that sound familiar?
No, mine was a little bit colder than that. It was like, and you get called into when you're on the radio. It's like, what did a listener say I said? What did I say? Did I do a bit that went sideways? What went down? And she just goes, this is not going to be a fun one. And as I'm sitting down, it's like, you're being laid off. Just those 4 words. And it was just like, it almost sounds like the teacher from the Charlie Brown cartoons. It's like, whoa, whoa, like the waves and like the
it literally turns into that sound. Yeah. And the world fades away. And
Yeah.
you're just like,
All slow motion and stuff. So it was so weird. And yeah, that was it. So it was very, very different. But
how did you
very
walk
much
out of what did you do when you walked out of the office? Like, what happened next?
I literally walked out of the office. They tried to do the exit interview right then. I was like, well, maybe give me a beat, and it was very polite and everything. And I walked out, and then I saw our news guy in the building, and I told him, gave him a hug, saw my program director who knew. In radio, oftentimes you'll know, but so she knew. She starts crying, gives me a hug, and then I just got my stuff and
You got
said,
the cries.
I'll get the rest of it later. It's it's weird, but it's like what a blessing, right? And I don't know, when did you know? How long was your time in that gestation of when you saw, okay, this is the path I think I was on. This is what I love to do, but it's going to be okay. In fact, it's going to be even better.
So I always tell the story that I walked into a wine bar shortly after getting laid off, and then they offered me a job. But the truth of the matter was I had gone into the wine bar a week before for the first time, and I had already sort of developed a relationship with this guy there. And then the day that I got laid off, I didn't really want to go home because then I didn't want to see my boyfriend. I didn't want to have to tell him what just happened. I think I texted him. But I didn't really want to see him. I kind of just wanted to mope around, whatever that meant in Reno, Nevada. So I went to West Street Wine Bar, which is where the wine bar was. And I moped into there and I was like, well, you wouldn't believe what happened to me today. And that's kind of I think it took him, well, you know what? You need a full glass of wine on me kind of a thing. And I was like, thanks so much. This is great. And I didn't know what to do at that point. I was confused and I just hung out and was drinking my wine. And I was still I guess I'm going to figure out, I was looking online for jobs immediately. We didn't have good phone job postings online at that time. So I was doing the best I could. LinkedIn sucked. There was Craigslist. So I was on Craigslist looking around for design jobs or something because I was a designer. And that's when that guy started talking to me and is like, well, maybe I can help, kind of a thing. And that's when he clumps down these big books and gives me these 3 big, heavy books on wine. And is like, can you read these books? I will give you a job for under the table cash kind of a thing. And so that's kind of how it worked. But it was immediate. It was boom, into your new life. It was
both of our journeys start, at least with wine. I don't know how much you loved wine before that, but my journey into loving and appreciating wine and really desiring to take my forever love with radio and broadcasting, but combine it with my new love for wine. This came with a part-time job at a wine bar, and it was, I learned so much. And you remember those first wines that you taste them, you're like, your mind is blown.
Yeah. Wine bars are the soul, the grit, the soul of the earth. They need to be here for the wine culture to exist because they're a meeting place where we can have a little bit of a folly, and put a punctuation at the end of our day, that help us remember why we are here. I can remember feeling like the soul was being sucked out of me working as a designer, making car ads. Our biggest advertisers were all the auto dealerships.
Always.
So yeah. I made so many auto dealership ads and I tried to do a really good job and my frameworks were really amazing and it were really easy to share my files with other producers because I wanted to make it good for everyone. I wanted to be a good designer. If I'm going to make car ads, they're going to be done right. I'm going to do a good job. So, it's weird when you walk away from something like that, you don't realize how creatively drained you are on a regular basis. And at the end of the day, you have no creative energy left to spend on any of your personal passions and your life and all this stuff. And you only have I think I only legitimately have 4 to 6 hours per day, depending on, my health or whatever, to be 100% creative and productive. And then everything else is just me recovering and trying to build in that creative juice again. And my job was taking all of it. Of course, when you go out on your own, as you know, that 4 to 6 hours you have to produce on top of the 4 to 6 hours of figuring everything else out. So it becomes doubly, if not triply hard. So it's a huge trade-off to go out on your own. You're always dreaming like, oh, I can go out on my own. It's going to be great. I'm going to have 4 to 6 hours creatively and I'm going to make lots of money and it's going to be great. And it's actually this is like probably hopefully ringing very true. And then you're like, oh, I need to set up invoicing and I need to figure out how to pay people if I have a contractor ever. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm actually very bad with money. Why am I doing this?
Yeah. How did you get through those times? What did you do?
Well, I have an amazing boyfriend slash husband who helped me set up a lot of these things. Initially, I just had to maintain them. So he set up an invoicing system for me. I did a lot of the work like on top of it, like all that kind of stuff. But he found like my payments program. I use Gusto online. He found that before it was even called Gus, I think it was called Zen Payroll back in the day. Like these were all these like startup sites. He sort of was like, how do we make this as easy as possible for you to do and implement? Because I don't want to do it and you have to do it. So I kind of had a pretty good guide sort of searching around on the internet, trying to find the cheapest, best solution. So he helped set up some of this background stuff. All I had to do was then figure out my content system to how to create successful content and focus on that.
You fall in love with wine, but also, you're a designer, you're an artist, I know you're a musician as well. You go, okay, I want to, and this is what we try to do with, I initially started a show called the Cork Dorks, and it was like, just make wine approachable. Wine is, Gary Eberly says it best. It's like, Mondavi always told me, wine is an industry of bullshit. And there's so much, snootiness and bullshit in the wine industry to be able to cut through and say there are no stupid questions. I mean, this is exactly what Wine Folly has been doing since the beginning. When did you know, okay, this is the angle, and we're going to talk about where Wine Folly is coming now with the courses and stuff, but where did you initially think, okay, this needs to be delivered this way?
I think it was an extension of my personality already, because that's how I learned. So what I was using to teach other people online was what I was creating essentially for myself. So I speak with natural language. I write like I talk. I'm extremely visual learner. And if I could create a visual that teaches me, it'll probably teach other people as well. Like if I can reverse engineer a topic mentally and then turn it into a visual, because I already do that when I'm note taking. I always try to draw it out. Like I don't understand things clearly. I think I have a learning disability. So I have to like draw it out to make actual sense. Like, wait, say that again.
We were like the Cab Franc symposium a couple weeks ago. I sat maybe 4 or 5 people away from you, and you asked some. I'm always so nervous to like speak up in those things. Again, it's very intimidating, but you were talking here and there. So during that, are you literally like drawing things? Are you like doodling as your notes in a way?
Well, with most of that symposium, I'm familiar with at this point. So it felt like I felt very relaxed there because I know about those Cab Francs from Villani, Hungary. I've had them before; they're really delicious, And so like it felt more like getting a reminder clip. He's a great presenter. This guy Wes Hagen's amazing. He's a high school teacher, also teaches wine. So like talk about colloquial human language, like. Ooh, if I taught high school, I would be even better. That guy was awesome. He was Wes so Hagen great.
He's one of my favorite guests to have on the air. I've had him on a ton because he's just rare air. You know what I mean? The way he puts things. If you ever have him with something, ask him to explain the history of wine in 5 minutes. And he will go through this illustrative whole journey of wine, and he will wrap it up almost to the second. It's almost like a parlor trick. It's really cool.
That's remarkable. Yeah, the man has skills. And so part of me watching him was observing his great presentation skill. That really inspires me right now is learning how presenters present well. So, something like that. So, but when I was learning about wine, I had difficulty reading the terms. I would be like, what does it look like on a map? Show me on a map. Or like, and so then there wasn't a map. So I was like, well, I guess I'll make a map.
Yeah.
So that's how Wine Folly was developed, is essentially me trying to help myself. That's why we have a big series of maps. That's why this huge online resource of grape varieties. It's all visual. And that's why the book exists. And that kind of a thing was like, hey, like, back me out to 30,000 feet and show me what the wine world is. And that I can make inferences and opinions on. Like, if you look at wine grapes planted in a region like Paso Robles, and you see that over 50% of the plantings are Cabernet Sauvignon, I don't think it is. I think it's slightly under, but
It's close to that.
You're going to be like, Cabernet Sauvignon is a very important grape in Paso Robles. From just seeing that number, you're going to be like, oh, and white grapes make up just 15%. White grapes are technically not as important because there's just not that many planted there. Sure, I'm sure they have some that are really good, which is very true. But like, that's how I wanted to see it. I just wanted to look at the data in preferably a pretty way. So I could very quickly be like, I can see what's here. I can make sense of it.
How do you figure out how to make money at that? Because obviously, if you're trying to show, okay, now person, I guess you're selling the maps, or what were you doing in the beginning? Like, because I know a lot of these, you go to Wine Folly, you get a lot of this stuff for free. It's
actually it's the thing that I suck the most at, actually. In fact, the company was like me for like almost 7 years, working almost 365 days a year. Like at least 4 to 6 hours every day I would have to spend working just to maintain the ends meet there, right? Because I didn't know how to monetize it. Advertising wasn't enough. You have to develop your ad. The lesson that I've learned, and the lesson you already know because you already have advertisers, is you have to build in your sponsors initially into the design of your program in some kind of a way, whatever it is your offer is. And I'm extremely idealistic. So identifying where sponsors fit in an ethical way was very difficult for me to do. Fortunately, if you do a little bit of research, so many people have already done the job for you. New York Times has done it. All advertising and shows everywhere have already figured this out. So there's a model that exists out there. And because I was so into ad-free, I thought that consumers would pay they would see such great content and they would be willing to like pay what it was worth. And that is not true.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, and some people do that model, but no, oftentimes it's very tough. And I guess coming from the broadcast industry, I was very much aware of like, okay, not only how we integrate, partners, but also when you're talking, I listen to podcasts all the time with a very critical ear because, in radio, you have this thing called like quarter hour maintenance where, you're just fighting for that next 15 minutes and everything is just about what's in this 15 minutes, but hey, what's in the next 15 minutes? We keep you for that third 15 minutes. Pretty soon, ideally they get you for, 3/4 of or a full hour. So just that kind of like quarter hour maintenance and working for what's next, teasing, and then
teasing what's next.
Teasing's huge.
What are we teasing in this program? What should we tease? What are people going to learn about from us?
Well, you could say like, coming up, find out how, let's say we had commercial breaks right here, be like, we got Madeline Puckette from Wine Folly coming up next. We're going to talk about how the latest with Wine Folly and how you can get involved in some of these courses, boom, commercial breaker. Or here's Taylor's love story, I did music too for a long time. So, and I know one thing was really important too. We were texting about it, and especially it's just so apropos of this time of year, and that's goal setting. When you look at goal setting, what are some of the people that you admire, talk about, and how have you successfully approached some of these things?
The first thing that I did was have a really big audacious dream. And I think there's two things that happen when you're a dreamer. I'm definitely a dreamer. You have this like idealistic view of what could be and what needs to be. And if only there was this. And then you're like, well, then I'm going to do it. And so then you start doing it, whatever that is, whatever you figured it out to be. And you realize that you don't know what you're doing. You don't know, you have no time frame on how to get things done. So for me, the biggest thing for goal setting was to turn my dream this idea that I had that, hey, there could be better information about wine online, and I could be the one to provide that information. Well, what does that mean that I need to do in the next week, month, 24 hours? Like, what am I going to do? And my husband called it the 20-mile march. What is the thing that you do every day that adds to the piece? Like, you're going to do the small things here and there, the little pieces, but there's always the thing that moves the big goal forward. And that ends up being the most important thing you can do in a day. And originally I thought I was hyper productive, that I could get 7 to 10 things done a day. And I had lists, and you would mark off the list and there would be 7 to 10 things done. But when I looked at that list closely, I realized there was really only 1 or 2 things that day that I was doing that was moving the business forward. And sometimes it was writing an email to somebody about making a sale. And it was maybe a 20-minute job that was actually the only thing I had to do that day to move the business forward. I had done all this other stuff, and I had avoided the email to the end of the day, and I maybe didn't even do it because I hate writing emails. I'm bad. I'm scared. But if I had just done that one thing. So one of the first things I do is I keep these little books called bullet journals. I'm like looking for one. I don't have anyone in arm's reach, but I learned about the bullet journaling method, and it's this really shorthand way of writing, and you write your day down, and you rarely even reflect, or at least I don't. We're to go back through them, but I at least write down what things I must get done during the day, and I write them down in little bullets. And then once I write them down, I look at them again, and I star the 3 things that absolutely must be and I can't do more than 3 usually, but I star the things that absolutely must get done that day. And I might have a huge list that day of all this stuff. And when you star it out, you realize those are the things that must be prioritized, and you should do them first, or, well, you should at least try. So that was a goal setting thing that was really important for me to become productive in a more relaxed kind of a way, because I was putting so much pressure on myself to get this stuff done. It created a lot of anxiety in my body, and in myself, which is never fun when you're drinking wine, because you drink too quickly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's such a great point. That's such a great point. When did you start? When did the popularity of Wine Folly and what you were doing become something where you have people, and even though you could be so nerdy and quirky and cute and fun and amiable and affable, but then there's people that will again, this is what has always been kind of a snooty industry for a long time. People start to push back. People start to hate on it. People start to talk shit.
It was almost immediately. It was in 2012. So we started the business in 2011. Actually, December 25th, 2011 was the first blog post. So it was within the first 6 months, we got pushback. I had posted some infographics on Reddit r/wine, and this one moderator just, it was so mean what this person was saying, and just ripped you don't know anything, all this Wine Folly source is a total hack job. These people are idiots. And it was, I'd spent, I don't know, maybe 20 hours of designing the infographic, and I was super proud of it. And, if Reddit was going to do something, they're going to be brutally honest. And you've got to be ready for that hardcore feedback. And I was like, look at my work. I'm so excited. Check it out. And they were like, you suck. Look at all these. We're going to give you a detailed bullet list on how you suck. Specific. Man. Oh, man, I cried. And then my boyfriend, because he's an internet wizard, managed to find the metadata off of this, found a post that was miscategorized by this person, found the metadata on the photo, which identified the location where it was shot, and it was suggested this was where this person works. We literally found out who the person was and where they worked.
No way.
Because my boyfriend was defending my honor. And once I looked this person up, I saw who they were, and it looked to me like they were just as insecure about wine. They were maybe knowledgeable about wine, and they were just as insecure in their place in the world. And here was this space on Reddit where they could feel important. And I wanted to do all this mean stuff. I was like, ooh, I could send them dirt, like whatever, something in the mail to this place where they work and would, make it, super effed up.
Get your payback,
But when I saw who they were, I immediately felt guilty that I was so mad and I was so hurt by them. It was like, oh, they're just trying to be important too. So it was like the first lesson and the best lesson I could ever have.
Wow.
Because I was ready to like start a war on Reddit, our wine.
Be right. And of course, mistakes are going to happen. And you're in a business where like, we can talk about how we want to appeal to the 99% and be approachable and relatable, but there is a big chunk of the 1% that are very loud and very much like, you don't know what you're talking about. How do we field those? What are some of the responses, and how do you kind of...
The best thing to do is, what do you care about? What matters to you? And here I am trying to be a resource about wine online. So if we have inaccuracy on our website in some kind of a way, and someone's commenting about it, we want to, hey, what's that source that you have for that information for us? So now we're very focused. Like if people are giving us feedback, we're like, oh, hey, where'd you hear that? Okay, let me go to that source. And then you go to that source, and you find out what's right. And what's crazy is it like builds over a long period of time, and you get this incredible resource of information. Now you can cite sources. Now you can, build a stronger knowledge base, and you can get correct information. Like you find out they're wrong. If you find a piece of information that proves that the knowledge that they gave you is wrong, now you can correct the whole suit of people. Like I remember writing an article on old world versus new world wine, which is a contentious thing to talk about these days. And I wanted to actually kind of point out that it was contentious back then when I wrote it, because I felt like those were the wrong terms to use to talk about flavor in wine. But I didn't know, like we didn't have language to talk about wine. It was so easy to say old world and new world. What do we do instead? So I tried to identify, what is it in the wine that we are smelling that makes it smell old world, right? Like, why does it smell old world? Because you can. You pick up a glass of Italian wine, and you're like, this is from Italy. It's old world. Like when you pick up that wine instantly. Or,
what is it? Dirt? Is it the climate? What is it?
What is it? Right? It kind of is about the dirt a little bit.
Yeah.
It's the tradition in that region.
Yeah,
it's the tradition of the winemaking culture. And in the old world, in these traditional winemaking regions, a lot of them have old gear. They have like 100-year-old barrels, and they're very proud of their 100-year-old barrels. And those barrels, my friend, they have a smell. And that smell, the smell of their winery, the winery that they've been making wine in for 100 years, has a cultivated yeast population that's been living in there for 100+ years. And that smell is savory, by gum. It smells like dirt. Like it is a rustic, aromatic smell. And that's why we call it old world wine. We have like no better way of describing old winemaking, because if you have a brand spanking new winemaking facility in Bordeaux, turns out it makes a much less herbaceous, savory tasting wine.
Yeah.
It's the yeast microbe population that survives in the dirt there. Like,
it makes so much sense. No, it's so interesting because you remember, I think of like going into these old wineries. We were there in like 18, like in Beaujolais or what is this old places. And it's like the big vats. And you know what I mean? It's like the big square vats or something. And you can see how just old everything is.
It's old.
Yeah.
It smells old.
Yeah.
It smells old.
That's so good. I love it. One thing I really like about you, and I find it somewhere that we kind of align, is just the value of connecting with people. and the idea of connecting with people. And I know you really relish in being a conduit to, if you can connect someone over here to something over here. There's a great story you have about, I think they were even in Iran, of a family that was making wine, right? And they put out some like little feelers, and then you put something out and then connect them with they're like making tub wine in Iran, and here Wine Folly can connect the dots for them.
That was a crazy story. I mean, here's this woman, this grandmother making wine in her bathtub in Iran. It's very illegal to have alcohol at all in Iran. And she was going and buying grapes. I was just buying market grapes. And we were like, well, what grapes are they? And like, take a photo of the grapes. And I remember her taking a photo. She had them split open. Like, these are the grapes. And they were Tinterior grapes. And as you know, Tinterior grape has red flesh, but it also has a red interior. So we're like, oh, those can only be a few things. And they're going to taste a certain way based on that fact, right? And so with that information, we connected. I emailed this guy in Washington State, like, hey, you got any cheap, fast, dirty, like home, kind of ways of making wines that works out. And he recommended using, for keeping an aquarium at temperature, like a temperature monitor for an aquarium.
For an aquarium.
Yeah, like for an aquarium. Because aquarium, the temperature of certain tropical zones is actually the perfect winemaking temperature. It's between 80 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever. That it's warm. It's like warm. You want it to be like 88 or 89 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that's what we recommended she try, is like, hey, we need to start controlling your temperatures. And that's probably one of the best things we can do to help make a consistent fermentation. And so that's what we recommended she do. She was so excited to send me wine. She wanted to send me wine in the mail. And I was just like, no.
I do not. You don't need that drama. We don't need that drama.
I do not want you to get in trouble. Like, if there's one thing, like grandmother's, beaten, stoned in the streets of Iran for having wine and everything. I was like, oh no, this could be bad.
Oh, wine.
That was the last time I actually talked to someone about winemaking from Iran. I think it was in 2013. And it's one of those things where I haven't, I feel like the controls on the internet got ratcheted down by different governments. And we used to talk to a lot of people from China. There was so much more openness on the internet early when we were starting that blog that is not that open anymore, which kind of scares me. The internet used to be this open thing that anyone could go to and access at any point and get anything. And it's changed quite a lot, which is, it's a sign of the times, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like, what's the next thing that's going to break through?
Yeah. How often do you drink wine?
I drink wine almost every night. I occasionally, if I have a really heavy bicycle day, I like riding bikes, I won't have wine that night because I think your muscles need a little bit more time to rest and recuperate. I drink about a glass to a glass and a half every night as my max. I think women can have about a glass of wine with no issues. Men can do about 2 glasses of wine with no issues. It depends. It's like a little,
Sure.
Depends on the wine, that kind of a thing.
Depends on the person, yeah.
Yeah, but I try to drink. I usually at the end of the day, I'm like, what's open?
Yeah. And what are you using? Are you just you're corking it if you don't finish it and have it the next night? Or do you have go Corbin style? What are you doing at home?
Yeah. Actually, we got these at work. We sell them on Wine Folly. It's called a Corvin Pivot. And I was using the Corvin, the one with the needle.
The needle? Yeah.
The murderous needle. This thing does not have a needle. It's just a little.
Whoa.
And you pop it in. You get hold on, I'll show you.
Oh, that's
you get these little caps, and I got a bunch of them because I use these all the time. You get these little caps and you pop it in the top of the bottle, and then it still has the argon gas. And they have really high quality argon gas. The guy freaked out.
You do have to open it.
Yeah,
and then replace it with the argon, and
and then it replaces. But then you pour out. You can actually not. You just open it and you put the cap right in immediately. I didn't do this wine properly at all tonight.
Yeah,
but you put it in like that, and then you just pour it out. and it, comes out like that. So
Look at that.
it lasts for like a month.
Really?
Like legitimately, it lasts for like a month, and I'm not worried about it. And I'm also like, I'm never storing wine for more than a month
I know.
anyway.
We're
Open.
drinking wine too much
That's
anyways.
irresponsible.
Yeah.
And I can just pop it in anything. I can
That's
use screw
cool.
tops
Well,
and
I see a lot of wineries when they have, a bottle that's 90, $95 or whatever, they're corvining that wine in the tasting room often. And this would be a great alternative to have that bottle last a long time and just go plop that thing in. And what are those? Because those corvins can be expensive. What does that run
these are
for?
still like for the setup. I think these are like, they come with 2 caps in this thing and whatever. It's like it's still $150. It's not cheap, and it comes with the capsules, and you have to replace the capsules like every 20 something glasses or so. So it's money, but like if you're trying to do responsible drinking and you live alone, it's a good solution because you're not gonna have a buddy helping you drink that bottle of wine, and you can ignore it for a while and be like, oh, I'm not drinking wine right now, and then come back to it and still be good. But I also store my wines in the fridge, even reds, whites, everything.
Yeah.
So like there's a part of my fridge where it's just like
is it crazy? Does Madeline Puckette just get like ridiculous wine sent to her? Is it like an Amazon package or a box all the time?
I get wine all the time.
Unsolicited.
No, thank God. It would be too much.
Up at the door.
It's still too much to handle. I need to taste about 60 wines before Monday or before this weekend or whatever. And so I have this huge pile of wines in this part of my house that's taking up a big amount of space. And I have so much wine that I have at least 60 bottles that I just want to give away. I'm trying to find someone to give away to, like maybe someone who runs mixers or something like that. So I could just like, here, just take it. It's going to help your party go great.
Oh, a nonprofit would eat that up for an event or something. Find your like local humane society or something. Next time they're doing a gala, they'll have bomb wine.
Help the kitties. Yeah, exactly. They'll get bomb. I have a case of pet nats that I can't use for anything.
Fun.
Yeah, I know. It's like awesome organic natural wines that are super cool, but I just can't use them. There's no reason to have them, and I can't drink that much wine. It's just not a good idea. So I'll figure out how to donate them. So that's one thing that happens a lot is tasting wines. And I have a system for tasting wines, and I run it in a spreadsheet right now. Although we're trying to build me a journal app through Folly, so this goes faster and easier, which would be really great to have because I write tasting notes for everything. I do 5 flavors. We have this technique to identify whether or not it's good for the club or not. But I don't get sent a lot of really fancy wines, like $200+ bottles or anything like that. I get a lot of normal people wines, like everyday drinking, grocery store, like stuff you would find at like a nice wine shop between like maybe $10 and maybe $60 to $70.
Was that weird for you to be at that Dow event because you were up at that Cab Franc thing, which was so cool to have you up there? And like, I don't know. I mean, is that normal that like a really nice winery with like upper echelon wines will have you, or wineries trying to like, hey, come to our event? Like, what's that like to get Madeline Puckette at an event?
I since 2016, I turned down most invitations that I get, and I get a lot, and they've sort of trickled off once they realize that I suck and I don't travel. But I do get a lot of invitations. I love to go to all of them. It just doesn't make sense. Like you have to figure out where your value is, right, in your business and how you make money. And it turns out I make more money if I sit in front of my computer for 4 to 6 hours a day.
But what does it mean? Like you got to get out and have fun. Obviously, coming to Paso is probably fun. We love having you out here.
That was awesome.
Is it like if they can package it sexy and go, okay, we're gonna put you in a nice hotel, we'll get you dinner, and you can go, oh, I can make a couple nights of it. I'll work a little bit. Yeah, okay. Like, or is it like, okay, let's just show me the money kind of thing, or what makes it worth it? And like, you know what? I'm gonna get on a plane. I'm gonna go.
I've been trying to figure out how to make it work. Like, how do you make travel work? And I think what I'm gonna try to do is to start like. I was reading this book called To Wake the Sleeping Self about this guy who rode his bicycle from Oregon down to the end of Patagonia. And so he had this content that he was making, essentially. It was this epic journey bike ride. And I've been trying to figure out, like, I basically sit in my studio all day long, and the best work that I do is sitting in my studio, which you can do anywhere.
Right.
And I'm like, how can I do that in all the cool wine regions of the world? Because you learn so much when you go to a new wine region. You learn about their traditional winemaking methods, which affects the flavor of the wine, as we've just talked about. You learn about the grape varieties and the rare grape varieties that you never hear about outside of the region. Like, I don't know, Pickpool in Paso is delicious, but who would know that unless you go there, right? And so those are the things, like, I'm very excited about new wine regions that I haven't been to because of the potential to learn something new, to build on the rapport and maybe help make my other website better. So that motivates me. So I think that's what I'd like to figure out, is how do I share the adventure with everyone on YouTube? That's what I'd love to figure out.
And that's just part one. Part two coming up with Madeline Puckette of Wine Folly. Of course, she doesn't need any of these plugs, but winefolly.com. The book is fantastic. It's all there. They are so easily making wine accessible. And considering that what we started doing with the Cork Dorks in 2010, and she has started just a little after that, and the strides she has made in the amount of people she has connected with all over this earth to make wine relatable, approachable, and for anyone, gotta give it up to her. She's so much fun to talk to. Also, she did the membership book and the maps for Paso Wine Country. Pretty cool collab. Next episode, I'll tell you, we get into some stuff. We get personal, we get philosophical, we talk about wine, life, love, all of it. Can't wait to share part two with my conversation of Wine Folly's Madeline Puckette next time, right here.
It's The Pour with Adam Montiel. You can hear The Pour in its entirety on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, and wherever you get your podcasts. For more, visit adammontiel.com.